Welcome back, guys. So today I'll be retouching these wonderful portraits by a photographer. I don't know how to pronounce the name, so please bear with me. So the name is on the screen. So I'll be retouching this wonderful image, and right now I'm in Capture One, and I'll be doing the raw processing. But before I go ahead with the tutorial, I want you guys to do me a favor, please. If this is your first time on this channel, smash the subscribe button, subscribe to my channel, and please also smash the like button. I have a goal for this tutorial, for this video. I want this video to reach 1,000 likes, so please make sure as you're watching this video, make sure you just click the like button and like this video. So without much words, let's just go into the tutorial. So now I'm in Capture One. I'm in the exposure panel here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the temperature of this image. It looks a bit warm, so I'm going to drag this back to make it a bit colder. So I think this is okay. Now I'll come down to this high dynamic range here. So I'm going to drag back the whites, and I'm going to drag back the highlight also. I want to drag it back a bit. Yes. So I'm going to increase the shadow up a bit. I'm going to bring back the brightness because it seems as if the image is a bit bright. So I'm going to drag this back a bit, just a bit. So I think it's okay. So let me just show you the before. So this is the before. As you can see, the image is a bit warm, and this is after. So it's better this way. So export. Okay, let's export. Right, just search. Right, let me just rename this FWG tutorial. Alright, so I'm going to drag this into Photoshop. Okay, now if you have watched any of my tutorials before, the first step I go ahead with after the raw conversion is I'm going to go ahead with cropping the image. And I can't explain this enough, I can't emphasize this enough. Make sure when you are cropping, you crop with the right ratio with your cropping, because your cropping can affect the quality of your image after you upload online. So if you want to upload your Instagram your photo for Instagram, make sure you use the 4x5 template here, preset 4x5 8:10. Then you can size your image according to the preset 4x5 to 8:10 inches. I'm going to use this template now. Just adjust my crop until I'm satisfied. Okay, so I'll just make sure my model is in the center, and I need to just crop out the hand to make it a bit bold. All right, so okay. All right, so I notice this side is a bit much, so I'm just trying to adjust it here. Then I'm going to drag it up, get a bit. All right, so I think this is okay now. So this is before the crop. As you can see, this is after the crop. So this is looking great already. And if you want this image, you want to follow along with the tutorial, the link to this image is in the description, so you can download this image and follow along with me. All right, so now we go ahead to the blemish removing process. There are several ways you can do your blemish remover, and there are several tools also. There's a spot healing brush, there's the healing brush, there's a patch tool. I usually use the healing brush when I'm working any close-up image like this. The reason why I use the healing brush is because the healing brush helps to preserve the textures on your model skin. If you're working on a long distance image, you can use the spot healing brush, because you actually are not trying to preserve the texture on the model skin. I hope you understand that. So I'm going to click on the healing brush here, and I'm going to create a new layer, Ctrl Shift N. I'm going to name this blemish remover. Okay, and after creating your blemish remover layer, come down to sample here, change it to current and below. All right, the reason why you're changing this to current and below is because you want to sample from the layer that is below, then work on an empty layer. The reason why you're doing this is because probably when you make a mistake, instead of deleting everything and starting the process all over again, you can just use the eraser to clean the area you think you make a mistake on. I hope you understand that. So now taking the spots in the healing brush, and current and below, make sure your hardness is on 0. Make sure your hardness is on 0. Then you can increase the healing brush to the size of the blemish you want to remove. And I'm going to zoom in a bit, and I'm going to start painting on the blemish. Okay, just sample next to the blemish, then paint over. Very simple. Sample next to blemish, then paint over. Sample next to blemish, then paint over. Sample next to the blemish, then paint over. Make sure your blemish is a bit your brush is a bit larger than the blemish, so that you can just remove it on a click. So when you notice that your blemish is a bit smaller, you can just reduce the size of the brush. Okay, so the model skin looks great, so there are not much blemishes on the model skin. So I won't be removing a lot of the blemishes here, because I can still do the blemish remover with frequency separation. And also you can use frequency separation for your blemish removing process. I even recommend that you can preserve a lot of textures using the high frequency on using frequency separation. You can use the high frequency and moving the texture the blemishes on the model skin, and it's really okay. So when you're working on a model skin and there's a lot of blemish on the model's face, and there is no way you can remove the blemishes without destroying the textures, I would advise you use the high frequency on those kind of image to remove the blemishes. So I'm going to create a detailed tutorial on that in the future, but for the sake of this story, I think the healing brush can do everything we want to do on this image. Alright, I think we are done with the blemish removing. Okay, let me just show you the before and after. So this is the before, this is the after. Then make sure your clone stamp is on current and below also, because I want to clean the background. So stamp close to the blemish, then paint, close to the blemish, then paint, close to the blemish, then paint. So we are working in a non-destructive way by using an empty layer. So you can just go back and delete the layer if you don't want to use it anymore, or you want to just adjust, can just use the eraser to clean this up. So going back to the healing brush, I want to clean this tiny dots here. Okay, I'll remove this with the dodge and burn. Alright, so I think we are good to go. Now the next step is the micro dodge and burn. So now let's put this in a group. So this is the blemish. Now we are going towards the micro dodge and burn. Come down to your adjustment panel here, come down to your course and bring this up. Okay, and name this dodge. All right, select inverse, control high, then come down to your adjustment panel here also, come down to curves, then bring this down, then rename this burn. All right, then select inverse. So let me explain what dodge and burn is all about. Dodge and burn is actually painting light on your model skin. So when you look at your model skin, every blemishes you see, every wrinkles you see is just as a result of the perception of how the light burns on the model's face. So it's how you're looking at the model's face, the way you see the light on the model's face, that's what gives you the perception of probably the model's face look wrinkled, it looks not smooth. I hope you understand. So what dodge and burn means is that you're using light to just correct what you feel the face should look like. So when you use the dodge, probably a place that ought to be bright, you notice it look dark. Probably a pimples that looks dark, so it ought to be bright to level up with the other parts of the model skin. So use the dodge to correct that. I hope you understand. So a place that is bright that ought to be dark, you use the burn to correct that. I hope you understand that. So let's put these two in a group and name this dodge and burn. Okay, so when you're doing your dodge and burn, you may be looking at this image and be asking yourself, where am I working on? Where am I working on? So that's why we have to create a help layer. Now come down to your adjustment panel here, come down to your solid color, take a neutral color, ash to be precise. Okay, then come down to your blending mode here, then change this to color. So after creating this, come down to your adjustment panel once more, come down to your curves, then can you bring this up and bring this down? I'm creating an S shape. The reason why you're creating an S shape is to give the image a bit of contrast, so you can see where it's darker. The places that are darker become more darker, the places that are brighter become more brighter. I hope you understand that. So I'm going to close this up. So you notice I can see much more into the model's face. You notice I can see much more into the model's face, but you can still be asking yourself, okay, how do I know where I have to work on? How do I know where I have to work on? So because I've been in your shoe before, and when I started using the dodge and burn, I asked myself those questions: where should I work on? So to prevent and to make you focus on where you are going to work on, so you're going to do this in such a way as if you are doing frequency separation. So I'm going to create a stamp visible layer of everything I'm in. I'm going to turn this off. Then I'm going to make a stamp visible layer, Ctrl Shift Alt E, a stamp visible layer. I'm going to change it to smart objects. Okay, I'm going to come down to filter, I'm going to come down to blur, I'm going to come down to Gaussian blur. Now I'm going to increase the blur until I can't see texture, any texture on the model's face. So I'll keep increasing until the texture of the model fields disappear. So let me just close at 10. Okay, let's use 12. Can still see a bit of texture. 13 is okay, then okay. All right, so now I'm gonna just turn this on. All right, I'm gonna put this into a group. Now when you look at this image, now you already see from this that you are not being distracted by the textures on the model face. So you are just seeing the light. I hope you understand that. You're just seeing the light where you have to adjust on the model face. So now you are not being distracted by the textures and the sharp regions of the model's face. So now you see air is a bit dark, is a dark patch, and you notice it's in the highlight, so it has to be bright. Notice this place is a bit darker, so you can see that you have to use the dodge to adjust this place. So I think this is one of the way you can dodge and burn becomes more easier for you to know where you have to work on. Just create your help layer, then create a blur on the image so that the distracting element like the textures can be removed, so you can just work on the light, since dodge and burn is only working with light. I hope you understand that. So I'm taking time to explain this so that you can actually understand what we are working on. So taking the dodge here, I'll come to my brush, come to brush here, and I'm going to change the flow to 1, the opacity at 100, the smoothing at 0, then the brush at soft round brush. Okay, I hope you understand. Soft round brush. Sometimes I use this I use the soft round opacity flow. Most times I use this because the soft round opacity flow allows me to use pressure with the brush. So I'm going to use this soft round opacity flow. But if you are not using a tablet, you can still use the soft round brush. You can just tweak the settings here, come to the brush settings here, then just click on transfer. So when you click on transfer, it's the same thing as using the soft round opacity flow. Click on transfer, then smoothing, then you are good to go. All right, so I'll just come back to the soft round opacity, then click on it. All right, then I'm going to reduce the size of the brush. Now make sure you bring the check layer. Let's name this check layer. Okay, let's name this check layer. Then bring the check layer below the dodge and burn. Make sure you bring the check layer below the dodge and burn. Then take your brush tool. After taking your brush tool, then click on your dodge. Then you can start painting. So just paint. As you can see, this is a bit dark, so you can use the dodge to adjust that. So you can take your time with this process until you are satisfied with what you are seeing. And when you notice that you're not seeing into the image, you can just go back to the layer we use the Gaussian blur on, and you just reduce the opacity. You can just reduce the opacity of the Gaussian blur. Okay, so I'm right here below the eye of the model, so I'm just painting to increase the brightness there. So I'm not going to be removing it entirely, so it's not going to look fake. Okay, so when you have any question, you can just leave any of the question in the comment section. I'll be glad to look into them. So when I notice I can't see into the model skin anymore, so I'm going to just reduce the radius of the Gaussian blur so I can see more of the work. So this piece looks too bright, so I'm going to click on the bone, then use the bone here. So click on the dodge again and use the dodge, the bone, then use it to burn those places that seems too bright to my eyes. So this place looks too bright, so I can just burn them off. Okay, this place too looks too bright, burn them off. On this place too, if it's also too bright, just burn it a bit, since the place is an highlight. Then here, now I want to see into the shadowed region of this image, the dark region of this image. So I'm going to come down to the check here. I'm going to come down to this curve. Okay, instead of changing the curve here, I'm going to come to the adjustment panel, come to the curve. I'm going to create a new curve, then increase the brightness. I hope you see it. So now I've increased the brightness. Now I'm going to come back to my dodge and burn. Then I start painting again, so I can see into the shadowed region now. So that's the benefit of using a blur. I'm not being distracted by the textures. So instead of now filling in and trying to change adjust the texture one by one, we are just looking at the general places on the image that needs to be adjusted. So if this is your first time working on dodge and burn, or probably you have been doing your dodge and burn in a different way, I can advise you trying this technique. Okay, just burn a bit. Just touch this a bit. Just burn. Okay, now I'm just going to turn off the bright one with me the other time, so I can work on the other places. So now, okay, let me turn the bright one on so I can work on this part of the model's face. So burn, since this place is a bit bright, so I can just burn this place off. So let me start dodging again. The model's nose, I can just start dodging this place a bit too dark. Okay, I'm gonna use the burn a bit. Okay, now let me just work here. So you can see there's a dark spot here, so you can just use the dodge to remove that dark spot. Okay, this line, just move it to the dodge. Alright, now I'm going to reduce the radius of the Gaussian blur. Sorry, just come down here. Okay, click on the Gaussian blur. Then instead of 13, I'm going to reduce this to 10. As you can see, I can see more into the model's face now. So I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to come down here. I'm going to reduce the brightness of this curve. So reduce it. So I'm going to come down to my dodge and we start working again. Oh, this is a bit bright. You can just use the bond to reduce the brightness and make it even with the rest. So I hope this technique, this way really helps you with your dodge and bond. Just continue. So I'm going to do this one, the last time. I'm going to reduce the radius a bit. I'm going to reduce it to 5 so I can see much more into the skin. I can't see this part of the needle's face very well. So I'm going to just increase the brightness of the curve. Increase it until I can see into the place a bit. Okay. So I'm going to bond this place a bit. Come here. Then let's start applying a bond. And just bring the curve down. Okay, this piece is a bit bright, so let me bond this place off. Alright. So I don't want to skip this image, skip the video, so that you can actually know how I'm doing everything. So I don't want you to be lost and asking questions like, how did you get this place done? So that's why I take my time not to skip the video or forward any part. So now I'm going to come down to the check layer again, come down to the Gaussian blur. I'm going to reduce this to 5. Now as you can see, I can see into the image very well. So okay, now just reduce the brightness of the curve. Now let's start working much more in depth. So I'm going to zoom in a bit more than before. Then I can just start working. Okay, just start painting. It's a bit dark, so just paint over. Just paint over a space. As you can see, they're a bit dark in the highlight, so you have to paint over them. So the nose also, we can start working on them. Just start painting over the nose until you are satisfied. So this dark line, I don't like to see. Okay, let me just bond this tiny light dot I'm seeing. So this is a dots on the neck. We can dodge this away. Alright, so let me just turn off the check layer. Let me show you the before and after of what we just did. So this is the before, this is the after. 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 Before, after, before, after. Okay, now I'm gonna just do something. I'm gonna come down to the dodge here, come down here. I'm gonna reduce the opacity a bit. Okay. Alright, before, after, before, after, before, after. Now I'm gonna come down to the dodge and bond. I'm gonna come down to dodge and bond. So now I'm gonna create a stamp visibility of everything I'm doing. Control Shift Alt E. Alright, I'm gonna name this low frequency. Low frequency. Okay. Now I'm gonna duplicate this. Name this the high frequency. High frequency. Alright. So I'm gonna turn this off click on the low frequency, come down to filter, then I'm going to come down to trying to get the actual place. Okay, come down to noise, then come down to media. All right, so on the media, I'm going to adjust the radius until you can't see much of the model's texture. So I'm going to keep adjusting. So I think 12 will be okay. Okay, let's make this 13 so you can preserve a lot of texture. So 13 is okay. You can just see a bit of the model's texture. So okay. All right, so turn the high frequency on back, then click on the high frequency, then come to image, come to apply image, then change the blending mode, change it to subtract, change this to subtract, change the scale to 2, change the offset to 128, then come to layer here, click on the low frequency. As you can see the textures, then click on OK. Make sure your invert is not checked, the preserve transparency is not checked, and the max is not checked. Make sure the opacity is on 100, then OK. All right, now come down to the blending mode here, change this to linear light. Now I'm gonna put these two in a group and name this frequency separation. Okay, so now, so this is before, after. As you can see, it's the same, there is no changes. All right, so between them, we create a new layer, an empty layer, Ctrl Shift N, and name this color. All right, or I can even name this work here, because I would like to work on an empty layer. All right, now take your brush, your mixer brush, and make sure this button is already checked. I'm not checking this, and make sure your brush is clean. Make sure you're using a soft round brush, or probably you can use the soft round pressure opacity fluid if you're using a tablet. Right, so make sure it's on custom, the weight is on 20, the load is on 20, and the mix on 20, the flow is on 30, then sample all layer is checked, and this is on 0. Okay, all right, then I turn off the high frequency, then my mixer brush taking already, so I'm just start painting on the model's face. So I'll start from the edge here, and I'll start painting, start mixing the skin. So take your time when you're doing this, take your time, and make sure you're not painting painting the highlights into the midtones. Make sure you're not painting the lighter place into the darker place. Make sure you paint them separately, independently. I hope you understand that your model's face will not look disfigured when you are done with your frequency separation. So let me just continue painting, because most times I notice that when people people do their frequency separation, their face looks too flat, and they don't retain the structure of the model's face. So that is a bad way to do the frequency separation. As you're doing the frequency separation, pay more attention to the structures of the model's face. So where it's curved, you have to mix those places separately. You have to mix those places independently. So you use the frequency separation on those parts based on the structure where you're working on. Probably if the place is bright, you're gonna use the mixer brush on those places separately. Then as you are mixing, you make sure you are releasing your brush. Don't just click down on your mouse or on your tablet and keep dragging around. No, you have to, as you are using the mixer brush, keep releasing. I wish you can even see how I'm using my Wacom tablet. As I'm clicking, I'm releasing, so that my mixer brush can keep sampling from different area of the skin I'm working on. So if you are using it that way, you're going to have a uniform color on your model's face, and to prevent you having a face that you won't like to see when you are done with your retouching. So let me just keep moving. I don't want to waste your time. I'm just do this place a bit more. Let me just show you before and after. So this is before, this after, before, after, before, after, before, after. Right, so let me just continue with the process. Just keep painting on the skin. Just have to pay more time, attention, just paint. So this is before, this is after, before, this is after, this is before, this is after, this is before, this is after. Alright, let me just do a bit more. Okay, and just check some things here. Or after. Alright, so now I notice here on the model's face is not looking too nice, so I'm going to create a new layer here. Ctrl Shift N. Alright, so I'm going to sample from this area close, click on the brush. I'm going to sample from an area close to the place, sample here. I'm going to increase the flow a bit, probably to 10. Then I'm going to paint over this place. So I'm going to sample as I'm painting. I'm sampling from those places, painting from. Okay, just to blend those places. Okay, so let's do a bit more. Just keep painting to blend those places. Alright, okay, now I'm going to reduce the opacity of this a bit. So the only way we can do this, I'm going to create a new frequency separation action here. So I'm going to just create a stamp visible layer, Ctrl Shift Alt E, then just name this low frequency, low F. So duplicate, name this I. I'm just speeding this place up, high frequency. Then turn this off. So filter, come to noise, come to medium, and let's just put this at 10. Oh, let me put it as 8 because I want to clean off that place that's not really blending off on the model's face. Okay, all right, then click on the high frequency, come down to your image, come down to apply image, then make sure it's on the low F, then okay, then change this to the linear light, so it's just the same thing. Then put the group, then let's just name this FX2. Now I'm going to click on the low frequency. I'm going to take the lasso tool, change this to the lasso tool here. I'm going to just draw a shape on this part that does not really blend on the model's face. Then I'm going to change the feather to 23. Okay, come down filter here, come down to blur, come down to Gaussian blur. I use the radius 5, so I'm going to just multiply it by 3, then I'm going to add 2 to it. So 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2, that's 17. Okay, right. Now, as you can see, it's not looking the way it ought to. It's looking the other time. So I'm going to just reduce the feather, just reduce the opacity of the frequency separation just a bit. So 70 is okay. Alright. So let me just show you. This is before, this is after, this is before, this is after, this is before, this is after. So now the next step on this process is when I'll be filling on into the skin. As you can see, the skin is looking great already. This is before, is after. So the last step I'm going to doing here is I'm going to do the dodge and burn, the global dodge and burn in this image, and after that I'm going to be doing a bit more work just to balance things up. Okay, now Ctrl Shift Alt E to make a stamp visible layer of the every work we have been doing on this image. Then just create a new layer, a new curve. This has dodge, this has dodge. Then come down here, bring it down, then burn. Now I'm going to select inverse, Control I, put this to in a group, and then I'm going to take my brush. Okay, I'm going to start painting on those parts that ought to be bright and those parts that ought to be dark. So just increase the opacity to 100. So now start painting. So make sure your foreground color is white. Okay, then just paint this way, then L, paint like this, paint like this. Okay, just paint on those places that was to be bright on the media's face. You can keep adjusting once you are satisfied. Okay, and just so now I can burn this place. This place is dark. Okay, just reduce the opacity a bit. Then this place is dark. This is dark. This is bright. Bit bright. Can just brighten this place up. Brighten this place up a bit. This is up a bit. Just brighten this part up. Okay, just brighten those areas, giving the image some dimensions. Okay, alright, so now let me just burn a bit more. Let me just adjust this place. It looks a bit dark, so just brighten it up a bit. And this line, just brighten it up. Okay, just okay. Now it looks a bit natural. The effect of the global diamond looks a bit too much, so we just reduce the opacity a bit. Reduce the opacity a bit. So 70, I think 70 is okay. Alright, so now as you can see, the eyes is not looking so great. The eyes is not looking so great. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just use the patch to remove that red patch on the eyes. So just circle over this patch. You can just stick a stamp visible layer of everything. Ctrl Shift Alt E. Right, just drag. It's as simple as that. Just drag. Just drag. Alright, now there is already an action here, so come down to my action and let me just change this to button so you can see what exactly I'm working on. So I'll be using the enhance eyes. Okay, stop. Alright, so I'm going to painting into the eyes here. Okay, as you can see, the X is looking great. So just a bit more to make it much more even. I'm going to come to the iris sparkle here. I'm going to just increase it. I'm going to paint into the iris, just increase this a bit. So I'm going to make the iris much more brighter, and it's going to give it a much more dramatic look. So I'm going to reduce this a bit. It seems too bright. Okay. Alright. Now it looks as if we went too far. So take your brush and turn the foreground color to black. Then you can paint out those parts that seems too much. Okay, so paint out those parts. We can just try paint in more carefully now. So try painting in more carefully. And if you think you don't want to use this, there's also something you can use in the beauty retouch. You can just use the magic eyes. So the magic eyes to work much more perfect than just on the Retouching Academy. Let's just put this in envelope and turn this off. Then click on the magic eyes here. Okay, so just work the same, almost the same thing as my action here. So I'm just turn and click on the clean eyes here, then take on my brush and at 100, then I'll just paint into the eyes. Okay, so just paint into the eyes. Very simple. Alright, so now I'm just going to click on these lights to increase the brightness of the iris. Make sure it's on white, then reduce the radius of the flow, then paint into the iris. So as you can see, the iris is becoming more bright and more dramatic. So we can, so now just reduce the radius of the brightening eyes so it looks more better, and this reduce the radius also. Alright, so now let me just show you the before and after. So this is the before of this image, this is the after, before, after, before, after. Now we are not done with this image, we are not yet done. Before, after. Now the next step, I'm going to create a stamp layer, Ctrl Shift Alt E. Okay, I'm going to create a something like a glowing effect on this image. So I'm going to just come to the curves, bring this up, then I'm going to left click, come to the blending mode. I'm going to drag this down to just have the effect on the highlights region on the image. Then I'm going to just drag this down. As you can see, the model's skin looks shiny and great, as you can see. So now the next step is I'm going to come down to my panel also. I'm going to click on the more panel, click on lipstick. Okay, now I'm going to click on here. I'm going to just turn this off, click on this color here, then click on the color of the lipstick. So this is the color of the lipstick. Alright, so I'm going to just paint on the lips, increase the flow of the radius of the flow, and then just paint on the lips. Okay, alright, so if you notice you go too far, you can just change it to the black on the foreground and just paint it out. So the lips looks okay. I don't want it to look too much. Then I'm going to just do for the eyeshadow too. Okay, so click on the eyeshadow here. Alright, then I'm going to just click on here. I'm going to click on the color of the lipstick so as to have a uniform color. Okay, alright, I'm going to click on the light and dark. Yeah, then my brush and just paint. and just paint. Then I'm going to reduce the opacity bits. I don't want it to look thick here. So the lips also, we can reduce the opacity of the lips also, so it doesn't look too thick or too much. So I think 35 to 34 is okay. So let me just show you before and after. So this is the before, this is the after, before, after. Now the next step we'll be doing on this image is we're going to be working on the background. And I'm just select this image around, so I don't want to make this video long, so I'll just be using the quick selection and select object. I'm going to select the image round for me. Okay, and you notice on this place or on the eyelid here, not selecting it so perfectly. So select, click on this select marks. Okay, then I'm going to just use the refining brush here to just paint on the eyelid. So I'm going to select it perfectly for me, so I think we are good to go. Then click on OK. As you can see, it's more perfect now. So I'm going to just duplicate, bring this out of the background, so you can see it's on an empty layer. So I'm going to create a new layer between them. I'm going to sample this layer, this color of the background. Okay, now I'm going to bring this down on control backspace to kind of fill the background. Okay, now although the selection is not looking too great, I'm just using this as an example. If I'm working on it for myself, probably for my portfolio, I'm going to use the pen tool to remove it myself. So if you want to make your image and your background look a bit more dramatic, so you can just do something like this. You know, you clicked on this color, as you can see, this is the color it's brought out, the color of the background. So now you can just come down here, click on the color of the background, then make it a bit darker. So now I'm going to click on the gradients here. As you can see, this is the gradient. So now using the gradient to just drag down like this, you can do like this, or probably you can do this way. You can click on your masking tool. If I'm right, masking tool, then click on the elliptical masking tool. You can just make a circle like this. Okay, make it at the center. In a feather, you can put it at 200 to make it have a very soft feather. You can just fill in with the dark one, selecting verse. Then fill in with the darker one. As you can see, it looks a bit more dramatic. Then you can just increase the weights. Alright, let me just try using just ash. Okay, alright, so now just reduce the opacity bits. Alright, so this is before, this is after. So the next step I'll be doing on this image is that we're using my corner loops. So Ctrl Shift Alt E is stamp visible layer of everything. Sorry, stamp visible layer of everything. Ctrl Shift Alt E. Then come down to my color lookup panel here. I'm gonna use my color loops, which is cool blue, FWG. And so I see it gives it a bit of coding look. I'm just going to reduce the opacity. So I think 25 is okay. 25 is okay. Alright, so this is typically how you can retouch your image to have the perfect look. So this is after, before. As you can see, the retouch looks very natural without looking too smooth, and you achieved what you want your image to look like. So this is the way you can retouch your image and make it looks very natural. Thank you for staying with me, and see you next time. Thank you.